Hey, team players, and welcome back. Today is going to be another amazing day. It's week 2, baby. Let's talk about how week 1 ended up. That Minnesota game, man, it's got to feel bad to be a Caleb Williams fan. He's going to cost you so much. But hey, right, we got injuries to talk about. We got week 2 to make happen. This is going to be a fun day. Let's go win some games, some money, and make yourself a championship contender. CC, we miss you too. Welcome back. Let's get the chips on the table and them in your barn, baby. Alrighty. So Ertz or Ingram rest of the season, Bob? Where are we at? And by the way, CC, love your first game back and you're putting the quick hit in the system. Love it.
So for me, it would probably be Ertz. I love Evan Ingram so much, but with the injury that he's already dealing with, I actually wouldn't go with either of those guys the rest of the season based off of what we saw in the first week performances. But we could talk about that at another time. I'd probably be on Ertz, but I don't really like either of them right now.
And CC, we got your deep dive here, so we're going to jump right into Jesse's quick hitter. Again, guys, make sure you put in quick hitters or deep dives.
What's happening, Jesse? What's going on? I'm on.
What defense should I go with this week? We're looking at Packers, Chargers, Hawks, and Chargers. Look, you can hear me read good.
Joe, you've practiced reading for such a long time now.
Points against is how I look at defenses. That's how I always look at it here. So I'm going to read you the points per against we have values of, and then you can go from there. So Buffalo is 21.02. Seattle is 22.6, and Chargers are 21.2. So Green Bay wins by 0.02. So by 0.2 of a point, we'd go with Packers there. But the best by far we're looking at here is probably going to be Dallas. But the realistic answer that I would go with above all of it, even though it's like a neck and neck tie, is the Ravens. Ravens versus Cleveland to me is the number one defense, but given your choice there, I'm going with the pack attack.
Yeah, I'm not. I know what Joe's metrics point out, and I see that. But for me, I don't think that I could be on the Packers this week against Washington. I know it's a short week, and I know that those games are kind of weird sometimes. Packers played really well. I think Jane Daniels is a better quarterback than, Jared Goff, obviously speaking. I do think that Seattle is not a good play. I think that that's going to be quite problematic.
1 o'clock road teams
the Steelers,
the West Coast don't work good.
Yeah, and I think that when we look at the Chargers team, going up against the Raiders, I think it's going to be a good matchup, but I don't know how they're going to take advantage of Geno Smith. Out of the options, I would say Chargers. Even though the Packers are a stronger defense, they're facing a stronger quarterback. And I'm not sure how Jane Daniels will perform tonight on a short game week. It could blow up and be a great game for Jane Daniels. So I'm on the Chargers just because I think that Geno probably could make a little bit more mistakes. Ashton Genty was a bit less efficient than you want him to be. Brock Bowers is hurt. So, I think that the Chargers you could take advantage of them. I don't really like it.
So, but before Bob switches
and CC, looking at it here,
Bob, you froze up on me there. I want to say one thing about the Chargers, really about Geno first.
Go ahead.
And then we'll get back into our quick hit speed.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, for like the last 3 years, Geno Smith has been a quarterback, top 5 quarterback through the first 8 weeks, and then he falls apart. And the fact that Genty
that is
2 yards carry, I don't think it's going to hold. I just throw that out there. It's mostly I wanted to get some Geno Smith love out there, but it's a thing.
Yeah, that's fine. I like Geno. That's why I'm saying, I'm not really sure how I feel about any of those options. I think the Chargers are a strong option because of the Jane Daniels kind of chess piece there. Trade opinion for CT here. Just proposed Worthy and Chase Brown for K9 and Ridley. I'm getting Chase Brown. I think I can get this done. Hey, if you can get this done, I would rather have Chase Brown than Ken Walker. You could go back into what we said last week. And there's definitely some things to like about Ken Walker, but overall, I think that Ken Walker is one of those players, at least right now, that it's worth worrying about him. Whether that's panic worry, whether that's a level of concern, I think it's reasonable to be worried about Ken Walker. It was reasonable to be worried about him going into the season. So if I can get out of Ken Walker and move into Chase Brown, now there are some concerns with Chase Brown overall with this offense in general, but knowing that he had 100% of the touches week 1, and knowing that realistically, there's really not a challenge to those touches.
It's his share. I'm actually more worried about the Worthy side of the trade. Like, what are we expecting to get out of Worthy in speed guy after the injury?
But Joe, this is not really, in my mind, Worthy's an additional piece to this puzzle. This is more so of taking K9 and Ridley and trading him for Chase Brown, and you get an extra piece with Worthy. You could throw him on IR if he's available to put on IR. This is just a trade that's K9 and Ridley for Chase Brown. You're getting the bonus piece for Worthy. I like the Chase Brown part of it. I don't like giving up Ridley, but I do think that it's okay to move on from Ken Walker. A lot of people are going to go on both sides.
Okay, away from Ken Walker too. I just don't know Chase Brown's my target.
Worthy is a weird piece. I think you can target Chase Brown with pieces like that, just because some people will be worried about it.
Yeah, it's fair. I just don't know if I want them.
I'm on pick 2, Tracy, Trevion, and Monty. I'm definitely on Trevion. We saw great things from Trevion last week. The usage is going to be there. It is going to continue to grow. The Giants are proving to be a little bit problematic of an offense as long as Russell Wilson is in there. Washington's not the strongest defense, and the Giants offense did not look good. However, he did get the volume. Okay. Monty, on the other hand, he's in an offense that was struggling last week. Now, you can take what I said on Monday, or you could take what Joe said on Monday, and you could say a lot of different things about the Lions offense. You could say that Dan Campbell is going to coach him back. You can say that the offensive line isn't worrisome. You could say that it is worrisome. But what we do know is that Dan Campbell is going to rally the troops. Whether that is going to improve the efficiency of the offense, that is yet to be noted. And I don't think you can take a player who already is in a timeshare, who is already with offensive line woes, who they might not be able to produce. Now, granted, when we look at this game coming up, Chicago's defense kind of fell apart, right, at the end of the game against Minnesota. But they looked good in the first half. So I am not on Monty. I'd be on Tracy, on Trevion, but I wouldn't expect a lot from Tracy this week. And I think, in a way, I think what I said was true about Tracy from Monday and prior, is that Tracy's going to come with PPR targets, yardage, etc., and it's going to be hard for him to score a touchdown. Monty, on the other hand, isn't really catching any passes. Gibbs was doing that, and his is going to be limited to, maybe you're going to get 6 points, maybe you're going to get 12 points if he gets in the end zone. I think that both Tracy and Monty are very limiting, but I'd go with the upside that Tracy has right now until we see differently from the Detroit offense.
See,
and upside like that, but
I'm 100% on the Detroit running game. 2 reasons why. First is they had 3 drives cut short by going for it on 4th down. That's not going to happen again. Chicago's defense is nowhere near as good as Green Bay's defense, and I see there being a lot of running out the clock. Monty's the one who does this. Again, as I will repeat many times, there were 2 drives with 6 straight passes where Caleb Williams didn't even hit the body of the man, let alone make it a catchable pass. The guy is not an NFL winner, and Detroit in their home opener is not going 0-2.
And that's fine.
They are going to blow out the Bears, and Monty is going to get 50.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true, just based off of
the only reason Monty doesn't get 50 in the 4th quarter is if it's pick 6.
Also, Joe, based on going back to CC's question here, that was the only owner willing to move because the Chase Brown owner lost this week. So I think the trade as it is fair enough, and I would go after it.
Yeah, so that's the best you can get. That's the best you can get.
Mr. Magic, to this point, would I buy low on K9? No, I wouldn't. I'm actually a seller of K9 right now. And you'll know me from last year. I was a really big proponent of K9 last year. Basically, he had that high explosive rate. He was getting, and you saw the game against Detroit where he had 3 touchdowns and over 100 yards. That is the ceiling for Ken Walker, and that is a very delicious ceiling to be a part of. But the floor
Delicious
is
ceiling.
so low. The floor is
Gingerbread
so
house.
low. Okay. So when you bank on a player, and I'm assuming for most people he's going to be an RB2 for most people, maybe a flex running back for some people. And if he's your flex running back, it's a little bit more acceptable to buy low on him and get him into your flex potentially. I do think there are other better flexes out there, but on a week-to-week basis, you don't really know what you are going to get from Ken Walker. And his upside, we saw it, is really, really high. But there's also a limiting factor to that upside is that, he's going to have to do a lot. He's going to have to do a lot to hit that upside every single week. And he's not getting the touches to hit the upside. Mm-hmm. So it would be different if his touches were like pretty evenly distributed throughout the game. But from what we saw last week, he wasn't getting it early, but he got it late. Well, I want to see he's getting it early and he's getting it late. Why does it matter if he's getting it late? That game was a mess anyway. So it's
the only caveat I have is that you could buy low on him, seeing how bad the Steelers' rush defense was. Even if you don't start him, just buy low, stash him, and go from there. But it's probably not worth the risk.
I mean, if you buy low with the plan to trade him after a boom week, I can see that being the only instance, Magic, where I would buy Ken Walker. Is that if I was hoping
he's not a buy and a long-term hold. He's a buy and flip.
The problem is for me, I think that he's one of those players right now, at least with what we saw from usage, is that usage didn't change where we thought, in the fantasy community, where we thought it might change this summer. And Charbonnet did show up. And so if I have Charbs and I have K9 in a regular season lineup, they are not what we saw. And I'll say it again because I think I said on Monday. They're not the same as Gibbs and Monty. They're not the same.
So Bob, we're about 10 minutes behind. We got to start flying through these quick hits.
Allen, HN, Bucky, Pickens, Worthy, Ingram, Pollard in the flex. Benches, Sharps, Reed, Diggs. We appreciate the love, Steve, always. I really like out of this bench here, I do really think that Diggs is interesting, but I think that Sampson's the biggest piece that's really interesting. We were talking about him a lot this offseason as being one of those guys that has a lot of upside. We weren't sure where that upside would come in Cleveland. Judkins missed the first game. Judkins might play coming up in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how that split happens. But I think with Josh Allen, HN, Bucky, Pickens, Ingram can be a little bit of a challenge piece right now due to the injury. We'll see, like I said earlier on rest of season rankings, he could pay out. But I'm not really a fan of him at this moment in time with the injury. And Pitt's solid week one, but it was a good spot. Aiden, what's up, man? I currently have a trade request sitting in my inbox to trade McLaurin for Sutton. I kind of like it. Should I take it? So I value these players pretty similarly. Joe has McLaurin a bit higher. I think just a slight bit higher than Sutton, but I think that the upside of these two players is within the same realm. So for me, it's based off of what player are you thinking you are going to enjoy have on your team? I think a little bit more.
That's exactly this is a pure preference question.
These two players have some of the similar-ish touchdown upside on a week-to-week basis. They're going to need to get a touchdown to be kind of fantasy relevant in a week because their reception totals are kind of like they could be all over the place. They could have a couple receptions here. They could have 9 targets. They could have like 5 targets. I think Sutton's a little bit safer in the target bandwagon because the wide receiver situation is a little bit more in flux in Denver. So I think that he just by association, he is Knicks's favorite target. We know this. So
they both are.
I would rather have that target there, but also with Debo in town, and we'll see with McLaurin possibly getting more and more work as the next couple of weeks go on, ramping up from off-season activities, which he didn't participate in, right? You look at it and you say, okay, well, McLaurin has a chance to be very successful again in the same offense that he was very successful in last year. Now, he was also a frustrating own because he could go like he did against Philadelphia, 1 reception for like 2 yards and nothing, or he could go off for like 2 touchdowns. And I think that Sutton, for me, I like a little bit better than McLaurin, and I would do that. I would trade Terry for Sutton, but I could see many reasons why people wouldn't.
Yeah, again, this comes down that we have them ranked pretty much within 3 people of each other. So there's not really a hard thing. It comes down to preference. My preference is McLaurin because it's going to be a higher scoring offense. And again, Bob, we're beyond 10 minutes behind.
Yeah,
We got to
we're
catch up
good.
with
We're
these quick
good.
hits. We got to catch up.
Santiago. So I want to sell high on Igbuka, but which wide receiver should I target? So when we're looking at the totality of wide receivers, and we're thinking of players that you want to target,
You might get a really depressed AJ Brown owner, especially if it's by an immature owner.
If I'm selling Igbuka, which is not something I am going to do right now, but if I am selling Igbuka, what I want to buy into is I want to buy into a high volume player who may or may not have had a down week last week with also some touchdown upside, or I want to get 2 high upside players, that maybe had a slight volume concerns, but they're overall generally going to be okay. So like if I'm selling Igbuka and I'm looking for another, which I think you're looking for another wide receiver here, I might think about looking into trading potentially for T. Higgins. Okay, he's a guy that is definitely on my radar. We don't know, Joe Burrow always tends to start Brown. I probably wouldn't trade him. People wouldn't want to trade T. Higgins straight up for Igbuka probably, but I could see some people maybe being motivated to do something like that. A guy that I think is going to fly under people's radars just because it was, not a great week. We get up into a guy. I think Devontae Adams with a healthy Stafford, if Stafford is going to continue to be healthy, that is a worry and a concern that we had earlier in the season, that if you were going to do that, he has similar-ish touchdown upside as Igbuka. But honestly, to tell you the truth, there's not really a wide receiver on the board right now other than guys like Nico and guys like AJ Brown that I would want to trade Igbuka away for, unless I'm dealing for like a package of, say, like Sutton and like Zay Flowers or something like that. But you're not going to get those guys. So like that's the problem with Igbuka right now. That Igbuka
you need to wait another week for his value to prove itself. And then especially if you get another Philly only runs the ball week, you could get that, which leads right into this next question of Fergie or
let's say for example, if you had Igbuka and he catches another touchdown next week and he goes for 60 yards and a touchdown, because volume was a little bit of a concern last week. But if he goes for 60 yards and a touchdown, you're more tempted to keep him. I get that. But also he's worth more at that point in time.
He's worth more. It's easier to pry away an AJ Brown type.
Worth more.
So, Amon, this is an age-old question here. Do you want the better player or the better situation? Because Ferguson is in a much better situation because of the volume that Dallas is going to throw the ball. However, Goddard's a better player, and Ferguson might be getting boxed out of target share with Pickens there, even if he was healthy. So,
but what Alejandro said here is absolutely
always on the injury report. Alejandro, he always is. Granted, he's oftentimes always hurt, but if all were equal, like preseason, I was going Goddard above Ferguson. Neither two were like really guys I was coveting. But in this situation, I'd probably go with Ferguson just because of the volume.
If Goddard's healthy, I told you last week, and I told you on Monday too, I believe, probably just last week though. If Goddard's healthy, he is a player that I am always interested in thinking about starting. And that's a weird way of saying it, but I'm always interested in thinking about starting Dallas Goedert because he has very, very high upside when the chips fall in place for him. We've seen 30-point games out of Dallas Goedert. We've seen 0.6-point games out of Dallas Goedert before. So he's one of those players that, you live and die by the Goedert when you start him. But when I look at this matchup, it's what he did last week, and that matchup was perfect for him last week. But that doesn't mean that this matchup against Kansas City is going to be perfect for him as well. So, I look at it, all things considered, I would tend to lean Goedert if healthy, but also like if he's already dealing with injury like he's already dealing with right now, there's a chance that he plays like 3 snaps and gets knocked out of the game. So for that reason, I'd probably lean a little bit Ferguson, but I'd wait until Sunday morning, or whenever the game is Sunday afternoon to kind of make my final decision on that one. Mick, ETN, Garrett Wilson, Travis Hunter, Pearsall, start 2, quick hit. These are great options. Love them all. I think that most people are going to say don't start Pearsall this week because Mac Jones is playing.
Actually, there's a better reason.
I think I like Pearsall a little bit more, just in general, because Mac Jones is gonna get the ball to Christian McCaffrey, no doubt.
He made BTJ a thing last year, guys.
But the fact of the matter is that BTJ last year ran from the outside, also ran a bit from inside in the slot, designated wide receiver screens, etc. And I think that Pearsall profiles pretty well with that. ETN is an interesting one, guys. He was before the Tank Bigsby news, he was a definite sell for us here. We didn't draft a lot of him, but the matchup can be an incredible matchup this week for him against
incredible matchup last week.
The only problem with ETN is if this game gets out of hand, which I don't think it will, but if it gets out of hand early, ETN can be relegated for Bashal Tutin. I'd keep my eye on that one. I'm very much considering starting ETN in DFS lineups, but I'd be a little bit hesitant to play him against in my redraft lineup. But Garrett Wilson is another one that the
Garrett
matchup
Wilson surprised the hell out of me with how well he did. I thought that it was going to be
that matchup this week, Joe. That matchup this week they're going to have to keep pace with Buffalo if they want to win that game. So if you prescribe to the narrative mindset of that these players are going to have to keep pace, Justin Fields is going to probably do similar things as he did last week. And the Buffalo corners, did not stop Zay Flowers last week.
No, they didn't.
So you look at it and say it's a very similar situation, worse team as an offense in totality, probably. And Derrick Henry kept Buffalo honest. Derrick Henry had to keep Buffalo honest for the most part for the majority of that game. But I think for me, it's going to be Pearsall and Garrett Wilson. But I think about ETN a lot. Jesse, start 2 between Hampton, Cook, and Genty. Well, Cook is dealing already with a little bit of a hamstring injury. That will be something important to monitor. I think I'm on Genty just because he's a rook. He's gonna get the carries. They're gonna give him all the carries that they have in this game. It's not possible.
And same with Hampton too.
So I think that Genty is the play there. And for Hampton, I think that Hampton is a nice solid play this week too. I would monitor that injury for Cook, but I think because he's already dealing with that injury, I would tend to lean Genty and Hampton because Buffalo could easily swing these carries to Ray Davis and still win the game. So, I'm not 100% on Cook. So I think it's Genty and Hampton. How about you?
Yeah, go with the Rooks. That's exactly it.
CC, in my other league, I have K9 and Sharps. Do I hold one more week since I have the handcuffs? Yeah. I mean, you're looking at your team. The team is solid. Up and down the roster, you're looking at players that can produce. So if I have both K9 and Sharps, sure. If I feel like I want to trade K9, go for it. But if you have K9 and Sharps, keep them both. It's not going to kill you, but it is going to hurt you in figuring out like which one of these guys do I start. And that's kind of the big thing. And I just want to say for anybody, I was an owner last year that was trying to get Gibbs and Monty. And I was just generally going to play them both because that offense was so good. But Seattle's not like that. And you don't really want to play both because they're limiting each other's upside. So, I think you wait 1 week, see what the situation plays out and trade one of them and see, or trade both of them if you want and see where it turns out for you. Jonathan, wide receivers are London, Higgins, J-Mo, Hunter, Ridley, Coleman. Guy in my league wants to trade Nico Collins. Who would you package with T. Higgins to try and grab Nico?
Ridley.
So the guy that I package with T I think Hunter would net you more.
I think Ridley's the guy. I think Higgins and Ridley is probably the lowest amount that you can spend and get it. So I think your best economical return is going to be Higgins and Ridley.
Yeah, I think though Hunter's upside is way intriguing for a lot of people, and
That's
his
why I want to
usage
keep it.
last week is very intriguing for a lot of people. And I would try Higgins and then one of JMO, Hunter, or Ridley first. See what the guy comes back at and say, like, all right, like, oh, if he's looking for more volume, give him Hunter. If he's looking for somebody that has upside, or
He's
give
a
him
guy who
Ridley.
wants
If
to
he's looking
trade
for
Collins.
upside,
He's not
get
that
Hunter.
deep into the game. So just give him Ridley and call it a day. No one is trading Rico Collins, who understands what this is about.
I know. The reason I'm saying
give
it,
him
though,
Ridley
is
and call it a day. Walk out. Take the win.
the reason I'm saying it, though. The reason I'm saying it, though, is that JMO is a name that people will also know did really well last year. So you start there. If he's willing to trade Nico now, you start with JMO. You don't start with your best bet. You start with JMO first and see go down the line.
My argument is JMO's more valuable, and I think you can still keep him.
That's fine. And you like him. I liked him a little bit more going into the season after the first game. Maybe I have the yips. I don't know. Would you flex between JMO, Ridley, Coleman, or Travis Hunter?
I'm probably going Hunter. I mean, to me, it's a debate between Hunter and Coleman, to be honest with you. Because as I mentioned before, I think Detroit's going to be in a blowout, and they're not going to be chucking it. The Hunter game, they're going to need to score. I mean, they're in Cincinnati, no defense, and the Jets' defense was better than I thought it was, but it got torched. It just could stop the run. So I think there's going to be a lot of throwing in both Buffalo and Jacksonville. So I'm going with one of those two. You can convince me either way, but I'm probably leaning Hunter because of all the bonus points associated with him.
Yeah, I mean, if your league, Jonathan, and we'll scroll down in a few to see if you put any other points in there. If you're getting defensive points to go along with those points, I would go Hunter, but I would probably start Ridley here. I think that Coleman is a interesting pick based off his performance last week. I'm curious how Sauce Gardner and the Jets do play him. Play against him. His role is. So I like Ridley. I like Ridley this week. They're going to utilize him. They're going to have to utilize him. And it's going to be a tough matchup too, because the Rams got after Houston last week, and I think they're going to get after Tennessee this week too. So that could be a rough one for Tennessee. So Travis Hunter, I think, has a lot of upside, but Ridley, I think, would be my next.
So guys, we see y'all down there, one bone train, etc. We'll be getting to you. We're coming on the list now. We're in the quick hitters now.
Alejandro, and we saw the deep dives above. We're going to get it to those deep dives. Don't worry about it, guys. So working on a trade to send Pearsall and Blue over for Ja'Cory Crosby, Merritt, or Henderson to have some running back depth on my bench. Any thoughts? I like Henderson. So there's a case that you can make for both of these players having very good to very exceptional fantasy football seasons. But the one thing that I like about Henderson is that he is a guy that already week 1 is catching passes and running the ball. Yes, he was limited on how many carries that he got. For Ja'Cory Crosby Merritt, he was only running the ball, primarily taking that Brian Robinson Jr. role. Now, we'll see how that goes as the season goes on, but I think the better play here would be Henderson. And might I add, while I do love this trade in general, Pearsall and Blue for Henderson, I am most likely keeping my eye open on the waiver wire for Blue because I just don't trust Javonte Williams.
Yeah, you've always had Javonte Williams.
The thing about Javonte is that those touchdowns were definitely, I mean, he could get those touchdowns again because Dallas can move the ball. But I do have a concern. Yeah, Blue was a healthy scratch this week 1, but he was injured coming into it. Was it a healthy scratch for that? There was news in the offseason of him being lazy, of him not doing the things that he needed to do. Maybe that was hey, Rook, you're not as good as you think you are. You're sitting week 1. You're going to be watching everything. And now as the season goes on, you're going to let him loose a little bit more. So I do like this trade because I love Henderson better than Blue, but I am keeping my eye on Blue.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt they're both an upgrade over Blue. Alejandro, here's how I would look at this. I actually have Henderson as the guy I would want more in a dynasty, but Bill as the guy I want more this year. They're both in the same tier, don't get me wrong. But the reason all comes back to this: Washington's going to score a whole lot more total points. There's going to be more touchdowns. And give me the running back on the team with more touchdowns is my general rule of thumb when we got two balanced similar players. Up to Jesse, Bob.
That's totally fair. That's totally fair. Jesse, start 2 between Igbuka, Debo, Sutton, and London. So if London's playing, London start. The volume for him was impressive. Is he a re-injury risk? Yeah, probably. But if he's playing, he's absolutely a starter for me. If, however, he's not playing, I think that Igbuka is one of those guys that, you know, I'm definitely playing him until the wheels fall off, to be honest with you.
I agree with Igbuka. Igbuka should be one of the two.
This week's schedule. Looking at this week's schedule, you're seeing that you know, Tampa's going up against Houston. Now, Houston has a very fierce defense. They absolutely do. So their pass rush is going to get to Baker Mayfield. So that's the one thing that you do need to worry about, is that Houston does have a very good pass rush. Houston does have a very good secondary. Igbuka is going to be needed to do a lot in this game. Bucky Irving is going to need to do a lot in this game if Tampa Bay is going to win. And I would venture to say that I think Igbuka is a very good play this week, because they are going to need to utilize him. Houston is it's going to be problematic. But again, Houston's offensive line is trash too. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Baker Mayfield to have the ball. And those plenty of opportunities are going to be good for Baker and Igbuka. Now, for the other guys here, let me phrase this Thursday. Right? Yeah, I like Debo. I have Debo on my own team. I'm starting him because that is who I drafted to start. But with this amount of players, you don't necessarily need to push Debo. But one question I would ask you, and this is a question that I have for everybody out there. When it comes to Indianapolis, this is the big question that we're going to find out this week. Is Indianapolis's defense good, or was Miami just that bad?
Miami was just that bad.
That is the biggest question. That's the biggest question for me. So I would start London and Igbuka. If I find that London is trending to not play or is dealing with a many limited practices, I would play Sutton and Igbuka.
Quincy, welcome back, my man.
Let's go down here.
10 team. Daniel.
10 man. I have QBs. 2 running backs. 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes. Okay. All right. We can get this done, Quincy. So CMC's a start. You're not benching CMC this week. CMC projects for 20 plus points this week. He's an absolute boss. You start him all day, every day. I think the other player that I'm starting out of these wide receivers is definitely Garrett Wilson. I'm starting Garrett Wilson at one of those wide receiver spots as well.
You didn't say second running back.
Because, again, as everything that I said, they're going to have to play. They're going to have to play catch up to stay in it. And I love Igbuka there as well. So far, we have CMC in one of the running back spots, Garrett Wilson and Igbuka. Joe, would you agree to that thus far?
Yeah, and then I'm probably rounding it out with Henderson in the second running
very
back
good lineup.
Yeah, I'm putting Henderson in. Henderson's in this lineup either as a flex or a running back. There's no way I'm not starting Henderson out of this group.
So then, Joe, where it comes to me at, Chase Brown is my other running back.
Yeah, that's how I would do this. I would do CMC, Henderson, Scary Terry, Sutton, Wilson, and Buka.
And that's fair. For me, I'm on CMC and Chase Brown. I think that Chase Brown's matchup, with the volume that he's going to get against Jacksonville, I think it's a matchup to exploit, because we don't know how much they're going to need to pass it. It's proven that Chase Brown had 100% of the carries. I'm not benching a guy that had 100% of the carries and is on an offense that should score one of the higher in team implied totals of the week. So CMC and Chase Brown.
Early Cincinnati doesn't always give it.
I'm there with you, but it's a high implied total. So I'm on CMC and Chase Brown for my 2 running backs. My 2 wide receivers, I'm starting Garrett Wilson and Igbuka. And then when it comes to the 2 flexes, I understand Achane, and you, Quincy, you know me. I'm a very big Achane champion of the people here. They're going to have to utilize him, especially if Waddle is hurt.
Yeah,
we'll see if this is a comeback. I think
I
that
just think they could just be so broken. Unless it's 100 degrees down there to save Miami, I don't know how they'd be competitive.
I think Achane is it's an interesting play, and I think it has enough upside that's going to convince me to do that. So I'm starting CMC. I'm starting Chase Brown in my 2 running back spots. That's not a question for me. My 2 wide receivers are Garrett Wilson, Igbuka. Those aren't questions for me. And then my flex is probably going to be Achane, and then I can convince myself of Ricky Pearsall because of the way that I think that matchup is going to go.
So, Quincy, we completely disagreed. You get to go with what side you think is going to go with there. But that's kind of where we're getting you. Again, we'll give you real, not planned answers here. So, Steve, Bob has been delicious today, hasn't he? He just absolutely has been. Brennan, welcome back.
Before we get to Brendan, I don't know what he needed to draw for defense. So defense right now, I could convince myself because we have such a long wide and I like the extra because they're more likely to. I would.
Bob, your internet got taken over there for a second, so I had to reset you.
Yeah, I would drop Diggs. Knowing the strength of
one that should be cut for the defense,
I would drop Diggs.
Or do a 2-for-1 trade and try to make these other conversations easier.
That was before the softer boom week for a Nico or a Guka. Absolutely, I love it. So Brandon, back to you. Who do you want or Goddard if you place? Those are interesting options, and based upon the usage rates, I think it's fair to say that it would still be relevant that David Njoku is still going to be a great option.
I think so too.
Now, when you look at Jawan, as it goes here, when you look at Jawan and you say to yourself, okay, well, where's the value there? The value's there in a matchup that is, New Orleans isn't a very good team. Maybe they're better than most people are letting on, but I think in general, they're not a very good team. They're going up against San Francisco, who is Mac Jones. Mac Jones isn't the best quarterback in the world, but definitely Christian McCaffrey is going to keep the ball away from them. So there is going to be limited opportunities for Juwan. However, Chris Olave is going to this game already dinged up, already hurt. Juwan Johnson is not facing any target competition at the tight end position as of this point in time. Juwan Johnson was also on, I believe, the Nuts lineup for DFS for the Big Money Ball tournament.
It was last week, yeah.
So, it is projectable that Juwan and Njoku are probably within 11 points, or we're probably within 2 points of one another. The only question for me is, which one do you think gets a touchdown this week? I think that it's fair to say that that Cleveland's going to have a hard time moving the ball against Baltimore to a degree because Baltimore might not let them have the ball as much as they might want to have the ball. So I think I'm on Juwan, but I could really go Njoku. I like Harold Fannin, but there's a lot to think about there.
So Nick, I'm just gonna cut to the chase here. You completely dominated this trade. Getting rid of Achane and Keenan Allen for Genty and Sutton. You got the highest producing player in Sutton and potentially the highest potential player in Genty. You absolutely dominated, Nick. Just be ready to move Genty again in week 9.
Honestly, Nick, I like the trade. We're in week 2, so you can easily go back to value, first round value, and then Sutton easily has a higher value than Keenan Allen. So you sold Keenan Allen high, and I think it's a potentially lateral move in terms of point totals, right, for Achane and Genty. I think you win it because you got Sutton. I'm not a Keenan Allen guy, but we gave you all the reasons why you could be a Keenan guy.
So in terms of your question of the Cowboys defense or the Patriots defense, I'm going to lean Cowboys, and the strict reason why is in general going down to Miami, you implode. And even though Miami was horrible last week, if they do get it together, a team that is melting like ice cream in the sun tends to be where it does it, and the Cowboys don't have that problem. So
yeah,
that's why I would go with the Cowboys.
So I like the Pats and DFS, but I think that I'm on the Cowboys in regular leagues this week.
Boy, you know, Colts are also a choice there.
Yeah, the Colts are interesting. Like I said, I'm really interested to see if they are real or if
you can't say the Colts because Colts are playing Denver. The other ones are playing the Giants.
And Miami,
Cowboys Giants is the answer.
Miami is strong, but I think Cowboys against that offense isn't very good. Jonnu or Juwan? I think I go Juwan, Smitty. Jonnu is going to get targets. I believe he got like 5 targets last week, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, or 5 receptions, something like that. It was good enough. And he ended up getting the touchdown. I really don't expect him to do much else in this offense.
Yes,
Juwan,
this is a classic argument.
Juwan projects like 1 or 2 points higher than him for me.
Do you want a floor or a crazy ceiling? Because Johnson showed he can go nuts on the ceiling, or do you just want a stable floor? This is a question that comes down to the rest of your lineup. If the rest of my lineup is high ceiling guys, I'm putting Jonnu in. If the rest of my lineup is high floor guys, I'm putting Johnson in. So I need to know more about your team, but that's my thought process going into the end.
That is a fair thing to think about as well. It's all about construction there. So Nick, is Reichert still fine as a start this week? Yeah, sure.
Reichert's gonna be fine until he's not. That guy won me the week last week.
Here's the thing. This week, playing in the dome, the offense clicked in the fourth quarter. It shows that they're going to be able to continue to move the ball downfield. Reichert's point total, Joe. What was his point total last week? I don't think it was that bad. He had 2 field goals.
He gave me 10, and we do a league where we do yard or a point yard per distance of kicks. So he took 2 long ones, and that was that.
Yeah, so I still like Reichert, Nick. Daniel Jones or JJ McCarthy. So this is a question that I never thought I'd have to answer.
I'm so glad Daniel Jones. What you think?
But I can't start Daniel Jones. I am much more.
How many rushing touchdowns do you need to lose to?
I am much more likely to start JJ McCarthy, and here's why. That game against Atlanta, you could easily project that higher than than this Denver game. Now, the Denver game could be weird if Bo Nix starts playing well, better than he did last week, and Daniel Jones. I'm just not ready to crown Daniel Jones yet. Okay,
because I am a fantasy. He's always been a good fantasy quarterback.
We have been taken for fools quite a couple of times, the fantasy community in general, by Daniel Jones. He's put up a monster week, and then the next week falls flat on his face. And here's why you should be concerned about it, is that Daniel Jones's upside last week was because he ran in 2 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah.
There is a very high likelihood that does not happen again every week. So my question to you is, can he make up those points with passing against the Denver defense? And I don't think he can.
No, I don't think he can either.
So I'm on JJ McCarthy because it showed last week that, yes, JJ McCarthy does have upside in the rushing game, and he has a better complement of pass catchers potentially. So I'm on JJ McCarthy in a game script that is probably going to favor having to pass the ball than Daniel Jones.
I'm on Jones. I just am. All right. So Myers, Javonte, or Monty for your flex. Smitty, I'm assuming these are all on the same roster you're asking these questions about. So if I were going to go back through it, looking at your 3 questions, Jonnu or Juwan, Daniel Jones or McCarthy, and then this is your flex. Seeing the total picture here, these 3 guys right here are decent floors. I want to use Johnson as my tight end as a potential ceiling guy, and I probably want to go with Daniel Jones as a potential ceiling guy. But that's only because Bob is so butthurt because I Daniel Jones him every time, and he's my best record against anyone I play. So there's that. So that's how I would go with the 3 here. In terms of which one to play for your flex, I am the opposite of Bob. I am on this Javonte Williams bus. I am so on this. I don't care if I'm the only person on it. Javonte Williams on there, but you also have two very good other options that I'm not. One's not a mile in front of the other. There's a little bit of personal bias here. I pick Williams on the bias, but you can't really go wrong with any of those three.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Joe, on this point. While I don't like Javonte Williams, I don't think that I think that he projects that he should probably get a touchdown this week. But Jacoby Myers' volume is going to be so good this week. So I'm actually I like Jacoby, and I'm gonna go with Jacoby because I don't think that Javonte Williams is going to get a high yardage total, and I don't think that he punches in two. I think that this is going to be a get right game for CeeDee Lamb.
All right, Bob, we're 35 minutes behind with 4 deep dives. We got to catch this up.
Yeah, we'll get to the deep dives, guys. We got you. Don't worry about it. Wumbo, 10-team PPR, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex with depth not as important in a small league. Should I try to trade my wide receiver 1 and running back 3 to get a first rounder?
Yes.
I'll stick with my guys for depth spies. Play the matchup with Ridley Pearsall.
Dude, 10-man league, you nailed it. It's all about getting the better top-end talent. That's what you always should be going for. That's true in big leagues, too.
I can only start 3 wide receivers due to flexing Kamara, so I'd be playing the matchup with Ridley and Pearsall as of right now. I have no problem with that, Wumbo. I think it's very smart to go out and to move some guys right now that you don't have room for on your lineup. So, like Reed is one of those players. I think, you could easily say he's going to hit a ceiling, or he already hit a ceiling game for himself. He is, you could project him for a big game somewhere in the season. So I'd be willing to move, Lad and a running back 3 or something like that to go up and get something else. I think Lumbo,
I'm going to advise you differently here. We talked in the beginning of the year that Kamara's peak is really week 4. If you're willing to do something a little bit crazy, get a little crazy with me here for a minute. I would look at go to the Chase owner and offer Barkley and Reed. Knowing Barkley is going to get hurt, it's inevitable. Getting Chase on this roster, and then in a couple of weeks moving whichever one you don't like as much, Pearsall and Ridley and Kamara for the running back. I know it's a 2-parter trade, but that's how I would go about this.
Well, I don't think that's crazy, Joe. And I know this is just a quick hit, but I kind of like the way you're thinking of that. Let's revisit that. That's interesting to me.
To the scoreboard.
Start 3 wide receivers this week: Nico, DK, Pearsall, Pickens, QJ, Sutton. I think I'm on Pearsall. I'm on Pearsall for sure. Collins, I'm not really thinking about benching Nico Collins this week. The matchup is good enough. He's gonna have to. They're gonna have to pass the ball to stay competitive. It's gonna be challenging to do that. And then the question for me is Sutton or DK? And I think DK's volume last week was good, and Seattle's defense was not, like, they did have a lot of tackles, but it wasn't as good as wanting it, as most in the fantasy community wanted it to be against Christian McCaffrey, right? So I think that DK is an interesting play this week, but I do think that Sutton is still the favorite target of Bo Nix, and if Bo Nix needs to get right, he's going to get the ball to Sutton.
That is true.
I'm on Collins, Pearsall, and Sutton.
So I'm on the first 3, which is obviously including DK. My defense for that is when he wasn't covered by Sauce, he had 100% of the target share. And there is no Sauce on any other team. So his yards after the catch was insane. I think that you might get something stupid like 5 catches, $115 and a touchdown. And I don't want that sitting on the bench against, long story short, bias against Bo Nix. I'm never going to fight that.
Yeah, and I do think they're all going to be pretty close to one another. So I'd take the guy that, for me, my way of going about this would be taking the guy that I think is going to score a touchdown, and that would be Sutton. So with only Genty, Pollard, and Warren, yeah, I mean that. With only Genty, Warren, and Pollard at your running backs, do I need more depth? And if so, should I target on waivers? So running backs that we should target on waivers, and this might apply to some other people's questions that they have. It really depends on what your waivers look like. I know a lot of people's waivers are really picked over right now. They're really much not in a good space. Most of the backs that anybody should carry have been picked up. So Let us know who's on your waivers, Nick, and we can better answer that question.
The answer is probably going to be someone like Blue, though, to answer your question.
True. This is why you and I get along, Wumbo. True wide receiver ones don't need targets to score points. Nick Westbrook-Ikine, 8 touchdowns and 20 receptions. The GOAT of all time, Nick Westbrook-Ikine. It's a shame that he didn't get a good play this week. Also, Frick, Yahoo making me play the IR dancing game with Godwin, who's doubtful, even though he's targeting a week 5 return. This is so. I hate Yahoo for this. Yahoo, when there's not an, it would have been better for Godwin to be put on IR for us here playing fantasy football.
It's probably been better for Tampa too.
He's doubtful. It's a pain in the butt. I can't stand it. Stashing Ayuk on the IR, I think that's going to be a smart play. Come down then. Here. Pick 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and a flex for full PPR. Derrick Henry is the nuts, man. You cannot bench Derrick Henry this week.
Yeah, it's true.
He's playing Cleveland. He's probably going to run for 167 yards and 5 touchdowns, okay? I'm not even like – that is an over-exaggeration, but you can't bench him, okay? Then the next guy up is that I'm definitely starting Tyler Warren, okay? Tyler Warren got the usage. He looked good.
Plus, Kraft's on Thursday Night Football, so you go with the one who's not.
He looked good all around. I'm not starting Matthew Golden this week. The usage wasn't good last week. I'm not starting Romeo Doubs this week because it's probably going to be a Josh Jacobs style game. You could see that in the script. But right now, it's Tyler Warren at tight end. So we have Derrick Henry at running back, Tyler Warren at the tight end.
Amon's your receiver. That's an easy one.
Yeah. I have hesitation about Amon because his games against his games.
You just narrowed it down. There's Monroe and Coleman.
I'm starting him.
Receivers left.
Listen, I'm starting him, but he has issues there, and I think you're starting. So it's Derrick Henry, Amon-Ra, then you're starting Keon, you're starting Tyler Warren,
and you have the debate between Cook and Walker.
Yeah, I think if
I'm biased towards Cook.
Well, we need another flex too. So if I need to flex one of the Packers, Dobbs has touchdown upside. If I need to flex one of the Packers, I think that Dobbs is a more likely candidate to get the touchdown from the wide receiver room.
See, I don't think I'm putting a Packer in. I think I'm flexing both running backs.
But I think you have to, Joe. Looking at it, Derrick Henry is the running back. Amon-Ra,
Cook is the other running back.
Yeah, Cook.
And then my flex is Walker.
Okay. All right, yeah, that's fair. All right, Big Rice. Start 2 running backs, 1 flex. Bucky, Hampton, ETN, DJ Moore, Hollywood Brown. This is an interesting question. I'm starting Bucky.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the usage is going to be great for Bucky. Hampton is very interesting to me as well. I said what I said about Hampton earlier. I also said what I said about ETN earlier. ETN is in another smash spot. If he doesn't smash, when else is it going to happen? Okay, because that line for Cleveland, if Myles Garrett was playing, so where are we, or that line for Cincinnati, Hendrickson was playing. The game was a mess. That Cleveland.
I'm definitely going Hampton though. With the extra break, Vegas' run defense ain't that good. I don't want to play maybe ETN, maybe not. Give me the extra break, guy who's a better football player, and then my flex is easy. It's Hollywood.
Yeah. So this is what I was getting to. This is what I was getting to, Joe. You could easily write a story for yourself where you can start all 3 of the running backs and be just fine.
There's no way I can bench Hollywood. There's no way I can write a story where Hollywood's not the best answer.
But Rice, here's the thing. Hollywood showed out. The game is going to be – they're going to need to
use it's full PPR.
Yeah, they're going to need to use him. And the utilization for him is going to be pretty high. Now, the question is, does Philadelphia's defense play better this week than they did last week? That's the big question for me about Hollywood Brown. Because what would really suck if Hollywood went for 6 targets, 3 catches, and 40 yards. That would suck because you're not getting enough of that volume. ETN, that's why I say ETN's very interesting to me. But I'd probably land on Bucky Hampton and Hollywood Brown, all things said, because the volume for those players, I think, is going to be higher than the volume for DJ Moore. And I'm on the fence about ETN.
And also, by the way, thank you for using the quick hitter system, guys. You guys are doing great.
Yeah, see, Iron Manor looked good. Ridley's still going to cook. Nino, been in the same trade talk for days. My bad bringing it up again, but the final offer is send Jamar Chase, send Sutton, send JT, get back Nico, get back BTJ, and get back Brees.
That's sending too much.
Oh man, Nino. How I feel about this is this. I'm not selling I am not selling Jamar and JT to get into Brees.
That's the answer.
I think
you're end right there.
I think you're buying Brees a little bit high. I think that Brees is going to have a tremendous season, and I think you're selling JT a little bit too low, to be honest with you. For me, this looks like Jamar. You'd be giving away like Jamar for Nico. I think we should. I don't know, man. I wouldn't do that. I could easily.
As much as I love Collins, and I do not love BTJ, and I do not love Brees.
I like BTJ, but I think I like JT too. The one thing about Brees that you are going to be enamored with is the pass catching upside. He's going to catch passes. It's going to have a lot of upside. He's going to have a decent amount of total yards every game. The thing about JT that's scary is that Daniel Jones might steal those touchdowns. Let's talk about this in a little bit, Nino. I wouldn't do that, but we can talk about it. Don't spend up if you don't have to. That's the thing.
That's right. You go for the goose, though, guys. That's how you do trades.
DJ Moore versus Detroit or Pollard versus the Rams. I think you have to be on DJ Moore out of these two in a full PPR league. Pollard is, I think, good enough, but the Rams' defensive line looked good. They look like they're going to pass rush a decent amount, and Pollard isn't the type of player that is going to be.
The real answer is the second DJ Moore gives you anything, move him, because he is not going to be able to consistently produce, except for his quarterback cannot consistently produce.
Yeah, what we saw last week, Joe, about DJ Moore, and this is for anybody looking at DJ Moore. DJ Moore, could project decently well. But he had 5 targets. Most of those targets were all in the first half. Roma Dunze had 9. So that's something to really think about. You know me, I'm a DJ Moore truther. I like DJ Moore a lot. But we definitely have to keep our eye on that. So I'm on DJ Moore there, full PPR. I think it's going to be close, though. And we got all the deep dives.
KJ gave us two deep dives. Here's his
we'll get to that too. Yep, absolutely. Better defensive start this week, Seahawks or New England? I think I'd lean New England over the Seahawks.
Yeah, basically, here's your question. What do you think's a bigger threat, the Heat in Miami or the 8-million-year-old quarterback going off again? That's probably basically your question.
It's probably the 8-million-year-old quarterback going off again because he's probably high on peyote somewhere. Whatever. I do think it's New England, though. I'm shooting a couple New England bullets there into the DFS lineups. Blue is a stud, but his off-field antics apparently is his downside. Absolutely. I mean, there would not be a question in my mind that Blue would be starting over Javonte Williams if his character issues were not issues, Thoughts between Pacheco and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt this week. If Eckler sat out, I'd start Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Absolutely, 100% you would. But I feel like I want a second game from both before changing to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, especially with Green Bay holding the Lions to 40 yards. I think it's going to be a challenge this week for both of these running backs.
The Lions' low rushing output is as much about game script last week than anything else. He goes all in to beat the Packers. He knows that's what he has to do, and he made stupid 4th down calls. He did it too many times. The game script is not going to go away from him, and he is going to run through the Bears. End of discussion.
But Joe, the question isn't about Detroit. The question is not about Detroit. The question is, do we start Merritt against the Packers this week?
Yes. The reason I don't is because it's Thursday Night Football. If this game was on Sunday, I absolutely would be. Although I hate starting Pacheco, Wombo. You know that about me.
And the thing for me is, I think the jury's still out, but I think what you would want to see, and this is the thing that would want to push you into Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, is that Jane Daniels is a better quarterback than Jared Goff.
Oh, yeah.
He is a more explosive quarterback than Jared Goff. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt still in a game where they were winning handily, got the majority of the carries and got a lot of them. Pacheco got 5. I think that tells the
And
whole
that's pretty
story.
much the end of it. Yeah.
I think you have to start Ja'Cory Cross-Kemerit this
I
week.
think it's time to start looking up trading Pacheco.
Brandon, win now scenario. Do I trade Henderson, who's my flex in a future second, for Buka and Fannin, or do I try to get more? I think this is interesting. I would. I think I would.
I like Buka for Henderson, assuming that you're heavy on running backs, but I still want to get more than an overrated tight end.
I don't think Fannin's overrated, but yeah, I like it, but I'd want to get more, Brendan.
We're talking week 6 about that, Bob.
Would you trade Igbuka and Henderson for St. Brown? My running backs are CMC, HN, Chase Brown, and Harvey. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I think while everything we said is true, guys, I like Igbuka, we both like Henderson. St. Brown is an elite level talent.
Yeah, he's in a tier of his own, a stud. He's one of those guys that he's a no doubt start every week. He's going to produce. He might not be as talented as J. Jeff, but fantasy wise, he's in the tier. So yeah, you absolutely, if you can get rid of a rookie who had an amazing day and turn him into St. Brown, the fact that it also cost you Henderson is a price worth paying. That's a trade.
And with your team, I think you can pay the price. That's the thing. With the team that you have, you can pay that price to upgrade. QJ or Keon this week?
I'm Coleman. QJ needs to prove that he actually has gotten it. He's one of these talented guys, first rounder after all, who shows it, but then also shows that he has nothing. And I need to see consistency out of him before I put him over Coleman, who they started going to Coleman. Coleman making that redirect catch in the end zone. I know it wasn't targeted to him, but that's the kind of thing that really bolsters it up. And, let's face it, Baltimore's one of the better defenses in the NFL, and he still produced against them.
Yeah, the only thing
pretty quickly become and always start.
The only thing concerns me is how Sauce would be used, but I think Keon's a great play this week, and most of the media outlets are probably on Keon as well. You could get a little bit contrarian with QJ. We'll see what his usage looks like. I don't do that
just for the sake of doing it. I give people the answers. That's why they win the money here.
I said I like Keon. I think Keon's going to be a good play this week. But also, here's the other thing to note is that Quentin Johnston, when he has a great game, it comes with touchdowns. Okay. So if you're projecting that QJ is going to get a good amount of looks in this game, which I see him as getting a good amount of looks in this game against this defense coming up on Monday night, I think QJ is an interesting play. Is it the right play over Keon? I think it's going to be close. I don't think they're going to be very far apart from one another, but I think QJ will get that. If he gets in the end zone, he's going to have a better week than Keon overall, because I'm a little bit concerned about the sauce. A little bit concerned about that. Would you guys drop Mooney or Likely for Godwin? And if yes, who should I drop between the two? These are 3 guys that I really like. 3 guys that I was going after in best ball drafts a lot. 3 guys already dealing with injuries. I would probably move Likely for Godwin. Yeah. I think I could easily see moving Likely for Godwin. Melting in the sun like ice creams in Miami. I love that. That Joe, it's
reality though, dude.
Sometimes you're clever over there, sometimes. I personally drop Likely for Godwin. There seems to be a ton of tight ends. So yeah, even if he gets picked up, I think that Likely is one of those guys that if he's not on your IR right now, and you want to move, or you see Godwin on the IR, I think Godwin overall would probably be a better play long term. But there's a lot of tight ends out there, guys. I mean, you only have to draft one. So there's
a roster one too.
Here's a bunch of other ones. So this one's going to get ugly for you. Flex 1, Harvey, Downs, Alec Ironmaner, Pacheco, or Benson. So I'm going to be a little bit unique here, guys. And I'm going to say Benson. Okay. And here's why. The usage for Benson last week was very, very intriguing. Okay. When you look at this game and you look at the overall, the overall outcome of this game, if New Orleans if Arizona is going to win, against Carolina, Carolina's rush defense is putrid. It's absolutely terrible. They let Travis Etienne put up 143 yards on that. Okay. Now, James Conner is probably going to see the same-ish usage as he had last week. Okay. And it's probably not going to change much as the year goes on. Now, when we look at the game that we had from last week against the Saints played better than, they could have probably won that game if a couple things go the right way. But what I see here is a distribution of carries. We have James Conner getting 12, Trey Benson getting 8, Kyler Murray getting 7 in a game that the Cardinals, were winning. Plus Trey Benson gets 1 carry. RJ Harvey had a similar kind of stat line with 6 carries, right? Io Manor is going to be the number 2. He might get a little bit of look. But I think Benson has a very high degree of upside in this game. While it's not like the best start of the week, Carolina sucks. And
there's no thought about that.
There is no reason why they need to risk injuring James Conner. If they want to be productive as the season goes on, they're going to want to keep James Conner healthy. And Trey Benson could go buck wild in the 3rd and 4th quarter in this game.
And if I'm going a completely different direction.
Yards, I'm on Benson.
I'm on Downs. Sutton is going to be on Pittman.
Disgusting.
He's going to be on Pittman. Listen, I know Downs is out there every snap. The rest of them are all partial players. He's out there every snap.
Io Manor's not a partial player. Io Manor is out there every snap too. Okay.
I think Dyke's
wide receiver 2 for Tennessee. I think you're wrong. I do think you're wrong in going Downs. Downs, I think, is going Downs.
Downs is going down.
Props to Riker.
I gave love to a kicker. I can't believe we're this far back. I thought about kickers like half an hour ago.
Yeah, you did roast him last year for showing some love to Lutz, and he won me the week. That was funny. I remember that. Quincy, quick hit here. 12-man QB, Lamar, Henry, McBride. Need 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex. Dobbins, Pollard, Kroski, Higgins, Hunter, Myers, Downs, Cedric Tillman. So for me, I think that I would put in T. I would roll T out again. I'd roll Jacoby out. I'd put them into my starting lineup. So Higgins and Jacoby straight to the starting lineup. Then I'm looking at running back. I'm probably starting Dobbins there. Everything that I said about Harvey is absolutely true. He's absolutely electric. But I think Dobbins right now is probably going to get a decent majority of the carries for at least a little bit more in the season.
Indy's defense, so it has to be soft.
Indy's defense is going to be susceptible. And that's why Harvey can definitely be a good play over in that flex for the last question that we had. I think that Dobbins is a good play at running back there. So the 2 wide receivers, I'm starting Higgins and Myers, and then it comes down to the 2 flexes here. I'm
going Hunter and Tillman in my 2 flexes. I
was going to say I really do like Hunter, especially depending on your league scoring system. And I think that Tillman is going to get a decent amount of opportunities in this game against Baltimore. You could easily slide Kroski over Tillman, but Thursday's weird. If you like that kind of play, you can easily start Kroski over Tillman. I wouldn't be mad about it. And I think the stats kind of back that up. Going back to my question on running back depth for Nick, the waiver wire in my league looks poor. I was thinking of maybe trading Pearsall or Pickens for Kroski Merritt. I wouldn't do that.
If I moved 1, it would be Pickens.
Yeah, if I moved Pickens, I could see him moving into Kroski Merritt if somebody would want you to do that. Just so you know, I didn't pull the trigger yet. That's just what we set the offer at. It's my choice right now, and it's definitely planned on declining to wait a week or so. I think that's fine. I think that's Blue's character. He came out and was like lazy. Like they said, oh, he's not working hard enough. Oh, he's not doing enough. And his off the field issues is why he probably fell a little bit lower. There's questions about his maturity and work ethic. And, when you have a guy with like Javonte Williams, who's been grinding back from injury after injury after injury, you're going to play him and you're going to give him the majority of the carries because why give it to some guy who doesn't even want to try? Nick, my week 1 matchup was glorious. My opponent had DJ Moore and Hawkinson, in which both underperformed. I was thinking about you when I was watching this game. I was texting you. I was like, I wonder what happened here.
Nothing.
The legendary Will Reichert came through with 9 points, so I won the matchup 94-80. Love that. Love that. Absolutely love it, Nick. What type of wide receiver would you target if I package DJ Moore and Igbuka? My wide receiver room is Jamar, Sutton, Moore, Igbuka, Keenan Allen, Bateman, Juju.
I think legitimately you can get A.J. Brown.
Yeah, that's a legitimate package for AJ Brown. Whether you want that or not is a big question for you, Nino.
But you definitely other ones that you can get are pretty much all the ones that went right around that tier. I mean, I wouldn't
I
be
think you
upset if
can
you got
get
Lad.
London. You can easily get London for
Lad,
something like that.
London. I'd personally take I would rank them as AJ Brown, Lad, then London because
I think that moves you. And Joe might not like it, but that easily moves you into BTJ. I really do think that that package right there is enough for somebody who has BTJ to second guess it and be like, oh, that's pretty good. Are we taking a trip down to Acrisure Stadium this season? Hope they remove the scent of piss. Nick,
they won't unless you come after it's frozen.
We're gonna get to all these deep dives in a minute. We're clearing out the queue of the quick hits here, but Nick, this is a great look back. Joe might have already been there. I think he was already there for a college football game. So Joe, report back. Does it still smell?
Of course it does. It was Pitt.
Absolutely. George, what's up, man? It's good to see you. Quick hit for the flex, non-PPR, Jordan Mason or RJ Harvey.
Mason was given a legitimate carry share. That guy, Mason might be the number one.
Mason was given, Joe's absolutely right, George. Mason was given a legitimate carry share, and he still only got like 6 points. So in order for that to hit, Mason is gonna need a touchdown. So for me, making this decision right now, RJ Harvey is more explosive. I think it lends itself to a little bit more yards if given just slightly one or two more opportunities. For Jordan Mason, in order for him to be productive this year, he's going to need a touchdown. So my question to you to answer that question is, does Mason get the touchdown? And I don't think he does. So I'm on RJ.
Though, and it's a non-PPR. So
I'm on RJ Harvey because of the explosiveness, and Mason.
I'm on Mason because of the volume.
What's up, King? It's good to see you, man. We're going to talk about that in a minute, King. Need 2 wide receivers, non-PPR, Devonta, Pickens, Ridley. That is a hodgepodge of guys that, up and down. And I like these guys. So I am on Calvin Ridley this week. They're going to continue to utilize him. He got a good number of targets last week. He did have some drops, but Cam Ward is going to be a good quarterback. Pickens and Devonta, on the other hand, I think I'm on Pickens.
I think so too.
Over Devonta Smith because, again, yes, they're going to have to utilize him against Kansas City, but that could go any one way. So I think Pickens and Ridley, I think, is a fair thing. King, out of the 12 that I
have over 60% of my eliminators left, King. So
out of the 12 that I did while I was doing all of the Superflex leagues, I got 7 out of the 12 through. So it's a great rate. I got bounced from 2 thanks to Mr. Josh Allen passing to Keon Coleman. So that was not fun to see that. But I had at one point on Monday night, I also got screwed by the JJ McCarthy touchdown. At one point on Monday night, I had 9 out of 12. So that really was a bummer when I woke up the next morning.
So George, this is an interesting question of who should you stash. My question really comes down to what is the timetable in which you need these players, George? Because if you don't need them until the playoffs, the answer is Caleb Johnson. But if you need to have a little bit more production sooner, I lean Tootin. And that's strictly because Etienne could fall off a cliff tomorrow. He could fall off a cliff in week 14. You don't know, but Jacksonville isn't taking him out until then.
For me,
there is a plan for Johnson to become the guy post-Halloween.
So it really depends on what I need, George. So I think Tootin is interesting. Priority-wise, I think he has an interesting priority for most people in that he does have that pass-catching kind of upside, but I think Tootin's a wait-and-see guy. Caleb Johnson didn't get a good look, I think, most of that game. So for me, like I said, he is going to be a guy that they're going to start ramping up, and by week 6, week 7, week 8, he's going to pay off. And I don't think if you're asking here week 1 that you would want to hold Caleb Johnson through all of that dirty work, okay? Because Caleb Johnson will probably sit on your waiver wires for quite some time unless he has a glow up in week 2, week 3, week 4. Because the bye week is week 5.
That's right.
So I think I wouldn't be picking up Caleb Johnson until about week 4, unless the glow up.
Actually, pick him up on the bye week of week 5.
Unless the glow up comes sooner. I think that Matthew Golden didn't get the target share that I was looking for week 1.
And he's probably not getting it tonight.
And he's probably not getting it tonight. So that I think that I'm priority adding Tootin out of this group, although I like Golden better overall.
I also don't think I would use my priority either.
Yeah. And
if I think you can save it, I would save it.
I think Tootin has upside because I don't trust that Etienne's going to be healthy. And now he's the only other running back on that team. Nino, thanks for answering that question. Scorpio, no, absolutely not. Do not drop Harvey for Quentin Johnson. Absolutely not. Do not do that. So Quincy, I have Kraft for a tight end. Would you trade Pearsall for Tyler Warren? He does have Bowers. Is it worth it? You're welcome, George. Is it worth it?
I wouldn't. You don't need to stack tight ends. I'd rather have the value of Pearsall. I don't need 2 tight ends.
All right, Quincy, going back to which team is it before we get to some of these deep dives here, which we're going to run through here? I wouldn't do that. I do think that Pearsall has a good bit of value in him. Kraft is a frustrating tight end to own because he's a very touchdown dependent guy. So I'm not trading Pearsall for Tyler Warren, but I would try to find a way to get Tyler Warren. Joe would tell you to find a way to get Tyler Warren. He did tell you to find a way to get Tyler Warren.
Quincy, I'm only trading for Tyler Warren if you're trading Kraft. I don't want 2 real tight ends on my team.
Yeah, that's
You
fair.
never want to be in a spot where you need to play which tight end should I start. It weakens your team overall. And absolutely you drop Keanu Reeves.
What?
Unless he is killing people because you killed his dog.
No. Keanu Reeves is way cooler than Brad Pitt. And maybe you can take Brad Pitt in Troy or 7, but I keep Keanu.
Fury.
All right, let's get to some of these deep dives, guys. Let's get to some of these deep dives. So Loveland or Fannin as the best upside stash. Here is the reasoning behind Fannin, okay?
It has to be Fannin. It's not even really a question.
Fannin, even with David Njoku there, Fannin was being used in positions that David Njoku was primarily trying to get into last year, like out of the slot and other positions on the field. Fannin is going to develop as a blocker as well. They are giving him the longest of leashes with this team. Okay.
Look, they don't have a choice. They're Cleveland.
Loveland, on the other hand, target share week 1. Now, granted, a rookie week 1 tight end target share is not going to be high. But when you look at in a comparison to Cole Kmet has no right getting the amount of targets that he got.
He doesn't.
When you look at Loveland. Now, what you also need to consider here, too, there are 2 big things to consider here. It's quarterback play. Now, Caleb Williams.
They give you the 2 worst quarterback rooms in the league.
While Caleb Williams is not a lights out quarterback by any estimation, he has
1 play a game, so people think he is.
He does have fantasy upside, but it comes with the legs. He's not blowing people out with 4 touchdown games week after week after week after week. He can throw for 300 yards. He can throw for 275 yards. He can throw for multiple touchdown games. But it looks like it is very highly likely, based upon what we saw week 1, that DJ Moore is going to get good usage. Cole Kmet's going to get good usage. And Roma Dunze is going to get good usage, and he's going to get looks in the red zone. And when they get close enough, the ball is going to be ran by Caleb Williams or DeAndre Swift. So Loveland has a lot of things working against him, guys. Loveland is in a situation where all things the same, right? You look at the 2 situations, you're like, well, these are quite similar. There's 2 tight ends that are already on the roster. Njoku is a better tight end. Now, it just worked for us that Fannin got more targets in this game than David Njoku, and that really killed a lot of people's DFS lineups. But when you look at it on a larger scale, Fannin athletically was a very gifted tight end at Bowling Green. There's a lot of tape. There's a lot of things out there to see. Fannin is going to be an exceptional NFL player, and exceptional to the degree that he might be the guy that if you didn't get him on waivers, you might be looking back and saying, why didn't I pick this guy up? While Loveland can be very good, the offense is a little bit more messy than we think it might be, and maybe Cole Kmet has a little bit more life left in the tank for Ben Johnson. So for me, the guy with the upside to just go with upside only, it's definitively Harold Fanning Jr. And that is based upon his athletic profile. That's based upon his usage week 1, and that could change. But it's also based on if Njoku goes down with an injury, because he's not the healthiest of tight ends either. If he goes down with an injury, now he takes on all of those tight end reps. And an offense that projects to pass 30, 40 times a game, why wouldn't you want that? Right, Joe?
That's exactly it. I mean, again, I can go on the other side of this about why Loveland is a bigger negative all day, just by talking about Caleb Williams. The guy is too late getting the ball out. The guy is not accurate. And where Loveland is most successful is getting open in the tight areas in the middle of the field. It is a fundamental disaster. And that's why when you look at the way that Ben Johnson, the supposed smartest coordinator in the world, even though he took the stupidest quarterback, ended up only throwing the ball outside. They had no significant opportunities over the middle. That heat map and Loveland do not line up. Fannin, on the other hand, is with a coach who wants tight ends to be productive. One of the reasons we loved Njoku so much in the offseason was how much Cleveland goes to their tight end. Now, granted, I did not give Fannin enough credit, but we're talking about an upside stash here.
Love
Fannin has upside. Loveland doesn't. It's kind of the end of the conversation.
And Joe, I see Jason, Nick, and Mr. Wumbo. You're in the chat there with some questions. We're going to clear up some of these deep dives before we go further into the quick hits there. Jesse, Nix or Penix this week? Okay, so these are two quarterbacks that I really do like. You guys know that I really like Bo Nix, and you guys know that I am a big fan of Michael Penix. One of the things that I see, though, is that I think that remember we were talking week 1, Joe, and there was a suggestion that you made of dropping Michael Penix, and I said, yeah, you can absolutely probably pick him up by week 5 because of the bye week. Nobody's going to want to roster him. He came out hot, and that was a game that was very predictable that he could come out hot to do. And I think he's going to continue that this week. I think that Penix is a good play this week. The one thing that I would want to watch for, though, is the health of Drake London. Drake London is going to be an integral part to make sure that I know that he didn't throw a touchdown pass to Drake London, but having Drake London on the field opens up so much more opportunities for this offense to be successful. The touchdown pass went to Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, I think, had like 100 yards receiving yards last week. When I look at this and I say, like, this is what we know Penix can do, guys. Penix can absolutely throw a bomb down the field.
Sure. No, he can't.
Now, I believe Casey Washington is the number 2 there. Ray-Ray McLeod potentially still the number 3 there. When Mooney comes back, how will those targets be distributed? Pitts, whatever. This week 2 matchup against Minnesota, Caleb Williams did exploit them in the first half of this game, and Roma Dunze caught a touchdown pass. And Caleb Williams had like 24 points in this game. I don't think that's projectably going to be far off from what Penix could do to this offense as well. So I think that Penix, for me, is a guy that I do really want to consider playing because of all of that potential upside there, right?
See, me and you are so opposite on this.
But hold on, let me finish, right?
All right.
But the thing about Bo Nix, though, is that when you look at projections this week, there's not much variable difference between those two projections. However, Bo Nix's ceiling is higher than Michael Penix's because of the rushing upside. Now, if the game this past week against Tennessee was just an aberration, Joe was talking to you guys last week that Nix was probably not a good play this past week because, Tennessee's an interesting, scenario to be in. But I don't think that Penix is going to have a second bad game in a row here, guys. So while I do like Penix and I do think that Penix is going to have a good game and he does have 23, 24 point ceiling kind of upside, Bo Nix is probably cresting into that 30-point upside that you would want out of a quarterback. So while I do like Michael Penix, I think I am still starting Bo Nix. Hey, buddy.
So I'm definitely starting Bo Nix. There's not even a debate on that one. And a big part of the reason is that when you look at what Bo Nix has, they are facing, long story short, just a better defense to match up against. Everyone knows the Colts are soft. It's been a standard of living since it's always been. And Flores brings it. The Flores-based system in Minnesota is very, very hard to overcome. Not to mention, it's really hard to win in Minnesota and be productive. I think Penix is going to have one of these first I've played a good defense ever type thing. I think Flores is going to be able to really dissect them. His record against young quarterbacks is incredible. And when you add it all up, you're just going to be able to have a better result here when it's all there. So with Bob away, I'm going to jump into some of the quick hits. King, in terms of the eliminators, I have a couple of really juicy matchups where like the other guy snuck through and I have Josh Allen. That's one of the perks, by the way. I know when we do the eliminators, I kept saying, get a good quarterback. You know, Daniel Jones went off last week and won people some things in eliminators. I'm not banking on him over Josh Allen 2 weeks in a row. So I'm really excited for that. So like I said, I have 60% of my rosters left and I'm really excited for it. We already did that one. Wumbo, you're up here on a quick hit. Back to your 10-team, 3 receiver, 1 flex trade. I'm wanting to consolidate Jamar. Do you think Kamara let Tet Reed for Jamar, AJ Brown, and Big B is too much? Well, when I look at this, I think that trying to put first off, man, I love where your head's at. I don't think that you arguably have enough firepower for someone who's looking at a name-based trade to say these 4 guys justify. However, I love where your head is at. I absolutely love the idea of going for the gusto. Tet, I think is going to have less games than that in terms of his overall quantity moving forward. And that's how I look at this, Wumbo, is if you can do it, do it. I just don't think you're going to get that one through. I don't think the name of Ladd is big enough to overshadow it there. So looking to start Baker or Lawrence. I know some sites rankings here on Lawrence. Again, we need to pump these brakes before we start talking about wanting to put Jacksonville into the major show here. Miami imploded. They absolutely imploded here. So you can't tell me that we want to have a situation here where Lawrence is the guy. I just don't want that. So when we look at this in totality, I have to go with Baker as a result of that. I mean, there's just too much. Welcome back, Jason.
Hey, Joe, what's happening?
Some issues with tech. We can hear him, but we can't see him. So let me.
I don't know what's going on here. Let me.
See what? There he is.
Here we are.
Now you're not here, Bob. What is going on here?
What's going on? I don't even know what's happening. All right. Well, here's Joe. Say hi, everybody.
Howdy, man.
Say hi.
Hi.
Yeah. It's good to see everybody. Blow kiss.
Ma.
Yeah. Mwah. All right, bud. Go to mama. All right. Let's get back to brass tacks.
Back to where, Bob? We're just have to be on this layout for.
I don't know. This is the layout that we're gonna have to roll with.
Yeah, we'll figure it out later.
I don't know what happened to the other layout. That's quite a mess. I don't know what's going on.
We'll figure it out.
Jason, it's good to have you. And when I look at your questions here, Ricky Pearsall, no Purdy, Reed or Shakir, I think you have to play Ricky anyway.
Yeah.
Ricky's an exceptional start this week. Shakir, we know who he is. He isn't the alpha in the offense. He is kind of, he's going to get his, but it's not going to be enough most weeks. And Reed, I think, is, you get what you get with Reed, but I think Ricky's a better play overall. And I think that the metrics back that up. I think Ricky Pearsall projects better this week than any of those two other guys. If I was starting two out of this group, I'm definitely starting Jacoby Myers. You can't get me to bench Jacoby Myers this week unless I'm starting like Igbuka and Nico.
I'm probably sorry out of this group. I'm probably going Judy as the number 2.
I think it's fair. I think Judy's an interesting play. When you look at projections for this week, Joe, he's going to have to be involved in order for them to be competitive. You can easily project him with a super, super high ceiling if everything goes right. So I think that for that reason, because the Swift's floor is so low and Pollard's floor is so low, I think Judy and Myers are the way to go here, Jason. Let's get back to some of these quick hits, Joe, or some of these deep dives before we continue with the quick hits.
Yeah, because Bob, I'm going to bounce here soon, so you're going to you can do quick hitters without me. You're good.
Debo or Pickens rest of the season. When I look at this rest of the season, I do think that this is a very comparable kind of situation.
It is. Number 2s on 2 good high scoring offenses.
I think that when we see what we see from Debo is a player that can do a lot. And this is a player who is kind of, I feel, more selfless to their offense. I feel like they're a player that is more capable of being in general, a better teammate. And I think that when you think of it from a locker room perspective there, that George Pickens' antics on the field, like getting PI called against him versus
catching the ball and getting the points
versus penalties on himself. I think that that's going to be a long-term problem, and it's going to continue to be a long-term problem for George Pickens. And so when I look at that and I think, okay, as you project out points for the rest of the season, I think these two guys aren't going to be very far away from one another. But when I do think is that Debo has a little bit more game-to-game upside from his utilization we saw week 1. And again, that could change when Barry comes back full strength. But I think the utilization for Debo is something that I am looking at because, again, like both of these players walking into new teams, walking into the receiver 2 role, and when you look at it, I think that Debo is one of those players that easily could get a touchdown running, could get a touchdown receiving, and is in a better position to be successful because he's not in his own way. And I think for that reason that I'd be on Debo rest of the season.
It's certainly hard to fight that argument there, Bob, because when you see it, I still don't know how to fix this thing. When you see it, Debo is stable. Pickens could give you a ton of yardage in the terms of penalties, but doesn't convert. Remember, Pickens led the league in most lost yardage by penalty last year. And the argument really is Debo too old? But if Debo holds up, he's gonna score more than Pickens. It's not really gonna be that close.
Yeah.
So if you assume health, which you should do in these things, CC, I would go Debo because he's not been on any injury reports or anything like that yet. And Pickens is going to have a moment of utter implosion. It's just the way that it is.
And I think it's fair. And Jesse, who would you guys start? 2 running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex out of this for deep dive here. So like I said earlier, I think that Emeka Egbuka, you want to roll with Egbuka until the wheels fall off. And I think that when you're looking at projections, right, he has a ceiling somewhere around like 22 points like he got last week, right? I think what we saw last week is his ceiling if those yards don't go up, right? And I think that when we look at it from the perspective of, I'm going to play the wait and see game with Drake London and see if Drake London's healthy, because if Drake London is healthy, he's my guy. So when I look at the 2 wide receivers that I probably want to start pending all health, I'd probably be on Emeka Egbuka and London as 2 wide receivers, and I'd still be starting Nico as probably my flex. However, if you want to play head games and you want to get really, really shifty, Hollywood Brown is still a great play this week. And I think that it's almost better if Drake London is hurt so that you could probably fit him into your lineup. Do not press that button. Now, when you look at the running backs, I think I'm on Henderson and Chase, assuming that that's Chase Brown. So it's Chase Brown and Henderson at the 2 running back spots for me, London and Igbuka at the 2 wide receiver spots, and then flexing on Nico. But again, if London is hurt, you could easily push yourself into Hollywood Brown. Now, stat-wise, right, is that if you're looking at Mason, like Joe said, right, Joe, is that Mason is going to get the majority of the targets for this team, or the majority of the carries for this team. However, those carries might fall and only get you 6-7 points. Now, when you look at Nico, Nico's going to always be one of our guys, but the matchups aren't going to be easy if they're not playing well. However, what really benefits him is the matchup. The matchup is great matchup, cornerback-wise, for a guy like Nico. You can't bench Nico right now, even after one bad game. So this probably is telling me that you probably are looking for, like, should I start Igbuka, Hollywood, or Keon is kind of the question that we're looking at here as your flex guy. And I think you go with Igbuka because the game script is probably going to dictate that Igbuka is going to see a good amount of plays. Hollywood Brown is going up against Philly. Philly still, they didn't look good week 1, but they still have a decent enough, secondary when all healthy that could stop Hollywood Brown. The best aspect, and here's the thing, the best aspect of Philadelphia's defense in that defensive backfield is Quinion Mitchell, right? So when you look at it and you say, like, well, where does Hollywood kind of match up against that? That takes away Hollywood's best feature, which is the speed over the top. So I do worry about Hollywood when I look at all of these players, and Keon could get the Sauce Gardner treatment. You could see him easily go for a nothing burger or a 5. And so I for that reason, I think it's very easily for me, Henderson, Brown, Nico, London, and Igbuka. And I know Joe loves Hollywood Brown. Would you start Hollywood over London or over Igbuka?
I can't do it over Igbuka. I mean, obviously, so my 2 receivers are Collins, no doubt, and Igbuka. So that's my 2 receivers. I do have Theo Henderson and Chase Brown as my running backs. So then it's back to what you were saying. London, Hollywood, or Keon. And I am probably going Hollywood just for the simple fact that national 4:00 game, Mahomes doesn't lose 2 in a row, and they can't run the ball to save their lives. Hollywood's going to have to be involved. And everything I said before that I was hating on Penix about is applicable to London. It's a very hard cauldron to go against Flores with a young quarterback in Minnesota's home opener. It's just really, really hard to do.
So let's get to some of these deep dives, more deep dives. These were from about an hour ago, guys. So if you're looking for a deep dive, we were behind quite a bit. We're clearing through them right now at a good pace.
Yeah, I get to answer KJ's deep dives, and then I got to bounce, guys, just as a heads up to y'all.
So what's up, KJ? It's good to have you back, man. Better flex start this week. Debo, Pearsall, or Drake London full PPR. So this is we kind of alluded to this throughout the episode, right? Is that Pearsall is still a great play with Mac Jones.
Yes.
Okay. The projections are good. The projections are having him somewhere in that market of like a 15 points somewhere in there with a ceiling somewhere in the 20s. He's gonna need to get a touchdown to hit that ceiling, right? When we look at a guy like Drake London is a player that if he's playing, he's a guy that I think you have to start because his volume upside is just so real. And that's something to kind of consider. But with the injury, you need to be on your toes about that because it could very easily be that if he gets out there and then he can't play, you're cooked. Because that's what you were looking for. So he's kind of in the danger zone for most people this week. Now when we look at how the game could play out in New Orleans. You could easily see a game where Mac Jones isn't asked to do anything other than give the ball to Christian McCaffrey.
It's possible.
So if you are thinking about Pearsall, and I'm going to put Debo off to the side because Debo's Thursday night, and Thursday night tends to be a little bit odd. Thursday night tends to not work the game script as many people do think. And I don't think that Debo is a better play than Pearsall or a better play than London. That's why I'm not talking about Debo right now, because I don't think that he's a better play than either of those guys. So when it comes down to it, I think both of these games are later games, right, Joe? With the San Francisco game. No, San Francisco game is a 1:00 game. So and the Atlanta game is a night game. So we're gonna really need to pay attention to the injury news. We're really gonna need to pay attention to Saturday, particularly to see where Drake London is in recovery. I'm thinking that he's probably not going to play. I don't think it's worth it to risk Drake London coming out this week.
And Bob, I know this is a deep dive, but that's fundamentally the answer.
Yeah.
It's kind of a process of elimination, and that's how it shakes out.
And the implied totals for San Francisco are fine. And the fact that, he's been targeted a lot, like Pearsall has been targeted a lot in his last games that he's played. I think that Pearsall is almost veritably a slam dunk. I don't want to say it, but I think he's very close to it. Should I take Bigsby for Garendo or Ty Johnson, the Cook hamstring? I think CMC will get injured very soon. But it's not guaranteed that Garendo is going to be the next guy up. That guy's going to probably be Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson Jr. So for me, I think that Ty Johnson isn't the one-to-one replacement for James Cook, but Ty Johnson gets a little bit more interesting with the Cook hamstring injury, because if it so happens that they have to rely on Ray Davis, I think that what we're looking at here is a situation where Ty, knowing the pass catchers here are pretty solid enough group of pass catchers with Josh Allen at the helm, I think they all got a decent chunk of carries, right? Or a decent chunk of receptions in this game, somewhere around like 7 targets or something in a game where he needed to pass a lot. Ty Johnson's just interesting. I don't think he's a guy that I would want to plug into my lineup and safely say, like, okay, that's going to be fine for me. But Tank Bigsby, I don't think should be dropped, because we have been talking all offseason about the group of people out there, Joe included, that are the Saquon Barkley is going to get hurt truthers. Okay.
That's me.
And so when I look at this and I say, if you believe that narrative, they went out there and got Tank Bigsby because Will Shipley's hurt. They have Quadzilla. What else? How much more could you not like Tank Bigsby, right? And the reason is Tank Bigsby is just Tank Bigsby. He's just a guy. Right. And when I look at it, and you're playing the running back injury game, and you're playing it the right way. But I think opportunity for opportunity, when you look at this, you have to think that Tank Bigsby is going to get the opportunities if given the chance to get the opportunities. And Ty Johnson is, and we've talked about this in best ball season as we got him a couple of times. He's just another guy that's a good pass catcher, but not a really good running back. So he's only going to be very situational and passing game scripts. So I think you still stick with Tank Bigsby, because the next guy up is Brian Robinson Jr., not Garendo, even though Garendo is a very explosive guy.
That's right.
All right, so let's get back to.
Well, guys, it was awesome. You guys get your job now. I'll see you guys next Monday.
Oh my, I was off screen a little bit there. All right, so let's get back into it here. I'm trying to find where we last left off. I think we last left off over here with Wumbo. So the projected points after the trade were negative 44 points on the season for me, but that's because the week 9 and week 10 buys. But by then, I'm sure my team will be different. I think absolutely when we look at your team and look at trades like that, when you say too offensive, yeah, you meant like, is it offensive to offer something like that? I don't think it is. And here's why, because I think that they're going to counter. Okay. When you look at Kamara, he's still a guy that's going to get 15, 16 points a week. When you look at Ladd, he's going to get his, and Tet's going to get his as well. I think they're definitely going to second guess themselves, because they'd be selling 2 high-profile assets for a group of guys that they would have to drop some players for. I think it's interesting enough, Wumbo, this trade that you have out there, and I would at least try. I would at least try to do that. Jason, start 1. Waddle, Pittman, Patrick's on him. Nick Chubb, Jalen Warren. All these are quick hits, by the way. So, Jason, I am not starting Nick Chubb. That offensive line, like we saw, is putrid. And while Nick Chubb is one of the guys that could pay off if he gets a touchdown near the red zone, I just don't see that makes any sense right now. When I look at Michael Pittman, there is a chance Michael Pittman does have a good game. And it really depends upon what cornerback is playing him and how they utilize Pittman in the formation. Pittman could absolutely exploit certain parts of the Denver defense, but I don't think that you could comfortably play Pittman. And that's why I think it's like a contrarian play, right? Is that not many people are expecting Pittman to do exceptionally well. When we look at Seattle, right, you look at a team that last week gave up, a decent amount to a running back through the air. Well, where does Jalen Warren feature himself? Well, through the air. That's, what he does really well. So I think out of all these guys, I think in order of how I would start them would be Jalen Warren, Pittman, and then Waddle, and then Chubb, and then Waddle, because we just don't know about Waddle's health right now. For the first one, let's actually start to Ricky Pollard. Ricky Pollard, Reed, and Shakir. I think in that situation, it's okay to go for a guy like Tony Pollard. The line for the Rams is very good. They're very good at pass rushing. Tony Pollard doesn't get a lot of yards before contact. So, that's kind of the concern that I have there for him. And when you look at Shakir, I mean, you could see him being successful in this game, a game where Sauce Gardner is probably going to be on Keon Coleman. So I think I could probably say Ricky Pearsall and Shakir, with the backup being Tony Pollard, and I wouldn't even be thinking about starting Reed. Jason here, last one, Juwan, Fergie, Okonkwo, or Dalton Schultz. I'm on Juwan out of that group of guys. Juwan's going to have plenty of opportunities, and opportunities are king when we talk about tight end. Yeah, I think it's Juwan all the way. Yeah, see, he's been talking a lot, so that's really delightful for us. And it's funny, Wumbo, he hears me talk about football. He hears me talk to you guys. And he's a big Pokemon guy. So he has not yet dipped into watching a lot of football with me yet. Jesse, should I start Pollard or Bill? I think in this scenario, we saw what the Packers can do. And I think that when we look at the difference between these two defenses, I think you have to start. I think I would start Pollard out of that, but I do like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think he can have a good game this week. And Pickens is crazy when he can. I mean, we haven't seen. I was watching some guy say like, okay, who are your generational talents? Like, who are the only players that are generational talents? And Mike Vick was on this guy's board. But I think Pickens is a generational talent up there with Terrell Owens of arguing and complaining with everybody. But yeah, Jesse, I think I do start Pollard, I think. But I see no reason why you couldn't start Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's probably going to get 60-ish yards, and hopefully he falls in the end zone for a touchdown because Jane Daniels can move the ball down there. But I think Pollard is also going to get somewhere in that 60-yard range. And I think Pollard's upside is because there's not any other running back in that room to catch passes. I think you could lean Pollard a bit more on there. So I'd lean Pollard a bit more. Yeah, probably. Should I trade RJ Harvey for Kenneth Walker? Scorpio, here's how I feel, man. I think that what we're going to see eventually is a very similar-ish kind of scenario between RJ Harvey and Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is the stat analytical darling. He absolutely is. RJ Harvey is going to get there. If you go back and look at his stats, I think he had an average of 11 yards per carry. I mean, I think he had a broken run too of like 30 yards or something like that. He didn't get the targets out of the backfield though. And I think when I look at this team and I look at Denver, Denver is situated a little bit better than Seattle potentially long-term throughout the season. Now, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a great playmaker as well. But the roles are very similar, and I don't think I'd want to trade RJ Harvey into Kenneth Walker, or I'd want to trade Kenneth Walker into RJ Harvey, because I just see so many similarities between the two of them. But I'd rather take RJ Harvey, who is not an injury risk right now, rather than Kenneth Walker, who is an injury risk. We have seen him get injured almost every single year. Top 5. Well, it absolutely is. I was telling my wife, I was talking about the DraftKings lineups and stuff, and we're going to take a look at, and I see you, Lucius, we're going to take a look at some underdog my eliminator matchups this week to see if we're going to win this week, boys. But I was saying, she's like, so you're picking players, and it's like, yeah, it's just like Pokemon. Top 5 low darks. 0.5 PPR, start 2, flex 1. BTJ, MHJ, Igbuka, Debo, Sutton, Breece Hall, ETN. So, when you go in and you take a look at a lot of resources that you have, one of the things that's always a tough start, right, is starting running backs on underdog teams. But Breece Hall is different. Breece Hall is one of those guys that easily could get you 6 catches, but last week he only got 4. He had a total of 20-plus touches in that game. You look at ETN and you say, well, ETN had a fabulous game, 144 yards, 16 carries, 3 targets. He had under 20 touches in that game, but he's hitting the threshold for the running backs. MHJ, great game. BTJ, underwhelming game. So when I look at it and I say, all right, well, all things the same, how do I think that these game scripts are going to go? Right, top 5. So I want to look at it and say, okay, well, if Brian Thomas Jr. is going to hit, what's going to happen, right? His ceiling could be really, really high. What's going to happen with the game script if ETN goes off, right? I think that Brian Thomas Jr. is a great play with a very high ceiling. The matchup for Marvin Harrison Jr., I am not about, guys. So, J.C. Horn is a pretty good cornerback, all right? So I'm not ruling out MHJ this week. So to start with, I'm on BTJ and Igbuka in their matchups. Like I said, Sutton could absolutely smash with a touchdown or 2 touchdowns because he is Bo Nix's favorite target. But I do think that I have BTJ at a little bit of a higher ceiling than Sutton. And I think that Igbuka for me has a little bit of a higher ceiling than Sutton as well. So I'm on BTJ and Igbuka, and then I'd be really into a decision here between Sutton and Breece Hall. And I could see myself starting Breece Hall. This week. But there's a lot of uncertainty there with starting running backs on teams that are underdogs. So I'd probably end up with BTJ, Igbuka, and Sutton because I think that there is touchdown upside there. I'm not quite sure where Breece Hall will get the touchdown. And Lucius, need one flex start. J.K. Dobbins, Pacheco, or Debo. What's happening, Recon? Well, for me, I think that this is a tough play, right? Because you're looking at Debo Thursday night. If Debo throws up a goose egg, you're going to be looking at it all weekend and you're going to be real mad. But again, we always play with our heart. The matchup isn't incredible. Green Bay is a very good defense this year. For me, I think I'd lean Dobbins. Dobbins can have a decent enough high ceiling. The only thing you got to worry about there is RJ Harvey. So I'm on J.K. Dobbins because I think he's going to get the opportunities. I don't think Pacheco is going to get enough opportunities, and I think that Debo's in a harder matchup. just to keep you honest with you guys, in my one Yahoo league, I have Breece Hall, Travion Henderson, Chase Brown, Bucky, Debo, Ricky, Egbuka. All those guys are starting for me. Recon, do I start Ingram or Jonnu Smith? So Recon, this is a tough question. I think that you have to wait to see if Ingram is healthy. If Ingram is healthy, you can play Ingram. But what we saw from Jonnu is that Jonnu is one of those tight ends now that is a kind of a low floor. So we talked about this in lineup making, last year, is that if you have enough boom on your team and you're looking for if you're looking for a safer floor, you can absolutely roll out Jonnu. If you're looking for something a little bit extra, Evan Ingram has a higher ceiling if he is proven to be healthy for the upcoming week. So if he's proven to be healthy for the upcoming week, I think that you could go after Evan Ingram. In order for Jonnu to get there, he's going to have to catch multiple touchdown passes from Aaron Rodgers. And I don't really see that as being a thing. So if Ingram was just ruled healthy, roll Ingram. If Ingram was just ruled healthy, I'd roll Evan Ingram out there. Sharps or Kenny Walker. This is a decision that hopefully you get cleared up by making some trades a little bit later on in the season here. I think that when we look at this and we see usage rates, right? They're in a game with a low implied team total. Again, the Steelers game was a low implied team total last week too, and that kind of just sat everybody and was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" Ken Walker, again, he has a high projection because he is so explosive, and with the implied point total being very, very low, but the likelihood that Charbonnet gets some carries near the goal line, I think my lean is a little bit towards Charbonnet. Tillman or Ridley. When I look at a guy like Ridley, I know that he's going to get targeted. You absolutely know he's going to get targeted. And it's not even Io Manor's there. You know Ridley's going to get targeted. You know that he is going to get probably 7 to 8 targets. Now, Tillman, that really depends on how the game is going to go. They're going to need to play catch up, in that game, most likely. Tillman does have a fairly high projection. It is very similar to Calvin Ridley's. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is that, do we see Tillman getting another 8 targets this week? Do we see Ridley getting another 8 targets or even higher this week? I think that when you look at it, all things considered here, that I would probably land on Ridley come Sunday, but I would definitely be thinking about this decision. The one thing that I would say about Tillman, and the one thing that maybe would put me into Ridley instead of Tillman, would be that there is a point in time where that if he gets the wrong cornerback, he's going to have a really hard time. And I think Ridley could overcome that. I'm not so sure Tillman can. Starting K9 and RJ Harvey has got me downright worried at running back. Here's the thing, Recon, it is. But like we have been saying all offseason, it is week 1 last week. Week 2, something else completely different can happen. So, if you like K9 over Sharps and all the metrics are pointing you in that direction, there's no reason you can't go for them, because what we're looking at here from Seattle is a game where these running backs are going to primarily be featured a decent amount, right? We saw Breece Hall getting 19 carries last week. We saw Justin Fields getting an incredible amount of carries. Sam Darnold's not going to get those carries. So in totality here, you're probably going to see an even distribution of carries, or a more even distribution, potentially 60-40, heading towards Charbonnet to Walker. Maybe they want to utilize Walker's explosiveness a little bit more, and that's why they want to use Charbonnet between the tackles. That could absolutely be a way that they're heading. So if you want to start K9 because he has that upside of being potentially explosive, I think it could pay out. But I think that for right now that I would lean Charbonnet, because I think that he does have that touchdown upside if they were to make it down the field to get into the red zone. Scorpio, how do we feel about ETN or Tyrone Tracy? I think that ETN, we've been talking about ETN for quite some time this season. And And in the offseason, we were talking a lot about Tank Bigsby and Bashal Tootin. I think if you have ETN on your roster and you're not playing guy and you don't have like Ekmeke, Buka, London, and Pearsall on your roster, and you're looking to start him, I think this is a fine enough place to start him. The long term of the season, he's in a better place now that Tank Bigsby is traded away. There's no doubt about that. He's in a better position. Tyrone Tracy is a guy that's going to need a lot of passing volume work to be good. He's going to need a lot of volume to be really good over the long term of the season. ETN's kind of the same way, but it's a little bit different, okay? So when I look at it and I say ETN has shown in the past that he can be an incredible running back, so that's the reason kind of that people are leaning a little bit into that. Tracy's going to need volume. Last week, he got 5 targets, 2 receptions, 10 carries. That's 15 total touches of the ball. That's kind of my baseline. I'm looking for running backs that are getting touches. ETN, like I said, had 19 carries, did a lot more, or 19 total targets, did a lot more with the targets. If you're in a PPR league, you can easily lean Tyrone Tracy because he's going to catch a decent amount of passes. Nick, is Benson worth trading for as a running back depth piece? I absolutely think so. What we saw last week was very interesting for most people, right? You know, people assumed that James Conner would continue to get the bulk of the carries, and he did get the bulk of the carries. Now, Trey Benson doesn't have a good projection this week because he's going to split time. But what I'm really encouraged by is in a game where you know, walking into last week, Joe told you, like, hey, James Conner might not get a full complement, and he didn't. And Trey Benson proved that he can be explosive. Carolina is a very exploitable defense. So if you're picking Benson up, I think Benson is a great long-term hold because Arizona runs the ball. Again, we saw a total of 27 carries from the Arizona Cardinals last week from Kyler Murray, Trey Benson, and James Conner. Okay, so if Kyler Murray, if James Conner were to go down with an ailment or they give him limited number of carries to keep him healthy throughout the entire season, you could see that pendulum swinging. And if Benson gets 12 carries, you could easily see him up over 100 yards. I think that Benson is absolutely a good depth piece to have, and I would trade him given the right price. Joe hated Scadaboo, and he did nothing, but I still believe seeing him at that block and him smashing into 3 dudes on that pass makes me think it's only a matter of time. Hey, what we know when we watch football, right, is that players that make plays are going to get playing time, right? So if you are making plays like that, even if you're not fantasy relevant right away, you're going to get playing time. And I think for the Giants, once they figure out Russell Wilson isn't it, and they put in Jackson Dart, that will be great for them. I just know 7 weeks in, K9 and RJ Everett will cook in, just panicking because Nico and BTHJ hit the bed hard for me as well. Don't panic. I mean, like I said, I lost to Joe week 1. He played Danny Dimes. I had JT. I lost by the margin of points that they you're welcome, Jesse. I lost by the margin of points that happened there. And that was a bit disappointing for me. But again, every week is different. And just because the one, these studs did bad week 1 doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be bad in week 2. But I think that when we look at everything and we come back, on Monday and we say, hey, like, what are we looking to do in this scenario? Well, we're going to know a little bit more on Monday about some of these studs. And are they really studs, or are we going to be looking at them and saying, hey, let's reevaluate next week? And I think for the most part, it will be really a good idea to reevaluate some players this upcoming week. So let us take a look here at a couple of the DFS lineups that we had. Joe, his craziness here. Let's go and let's take a look at some of these lineups. We're just going to go on speaker view. I'm going to try to share my screen here, guys. We'll see how this works in a minute. All right, here we go. Perfect. All right, so we took a little money out. We don't have a lot left in there right now. We're moving everything over to DraftKings. So we took the money out there. But here are the Eliminator matchups that were in this week. So for anybody curious, I had 12 eliminators. We did 12 eliminators, I believe, most of them on air. I got 7 through. which is a good rate. And so we're up against Thrill Killer. So let's see how it goes. This one has Josh Allen, Bo, Bijan Jacobs, Connor, Jones, Tootin, Sutton, Myers, Thielen. The Thielen really kills me because when he got traded, that was really, really rough for me. Coker getting hurt, Evan Ingram, Strange, Theo Johnson versus Lamar, Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, Saquon, Jacobs, Connor, Dobbins, Benson. Really interesting here. I do think Benson's going to kill me this week there. Sutton, Judy, Bateman, Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown will kill me this week. Sam Laporta. Okay, so that guy has a pretty interesting lineup there as well. Nick, when I look at your team here, let me put you back on. Let me put you back up here. So, what kind of wide receiver value would you trade for Benson? Someone like QJ? Yeah, I mean, like when we look at the upside of some of these wide receivers, right? And we see, okay, like what am I looking to get long term? I always think it's a good idea to try to get running backs that project good later in the season. Arizona has some good matchups later in the season. I think it's fair, right? So guys I'd be looking to move out of would definitely be in that same market there, Nick. QJ, if I have QJ, I'd probably move on from him. Calvin Austin is another guy that, does he project to go forward anymore? I think a lateral shift, Diami Brown is one of those guys that, do people like him? Do people not like him? It's an interesting case to be made about the Kansas City wide receivers. Again, guys like Troy Franklin or Isaac Tesla could, if you pair two up, to get into them. I think realistically, though, people would be willing to move Benson for a guy like Bateman, potentially, who has a lot of touchdown upside. I wouldn't move Bateman like that, but I could see people doing that. Josh Palmer is another guy who had a decent enough week one that you could move. And maybe if you have like a Michael Pittman, right, you can get Benson and something else if you don't believe Michael Pittman's going to be successful. I think Michael Pittman should be fine. Should I trade Harvey and Dylan Sampson for ETN? Scorpio, I don't think you should. I think when we look at overall upside, but here's the thing I'll say to you about that. You're welcome, Nick. Here's what I'll say about this, right? Should I trade Harvey and Dylan Sampson for ETN? You are buying ETN at his highest peak, okay? Now, the odds of ETN having another great game is, it's good enough, right? He has a chance to have another great game coming up. But the question that you have to ask yourself, right, is that will that game push him to a stratosphere where he is unattainable, right? 22 points, last week, I believe, which was one of the highest on the slate. And he's going up against another defense that is really, really terrible. If you are going to go out there and you are going to trade two of these young assets that proved that they can also be very explosive to move into Travis Etienne, you're going to want to be very, 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 very confident that Travis Etienne can continue to produce those numbers continuing going forward. Harvey and Dylan Sampson are still wild cards. There is a chance that Dylan Sampson will not produce the same numbers if Judkins comes back, and there's a chance that Harvey doesn't continue to replicate it, and Travis Etienne goes back to his Travis Etienne self. There's a lot of question marks in that situation. And I think that moving Harvey and Dylan Sampson, you're losing out on so much draft capital that you took, but also even not even thinking about draft capital, right, is that do you really trust Travis Etienne? And I don't think that I would move two very explosive players for a guy who just beat up on Carolina's defense, because Carolina's defense has proven to be one of the worst rush defenses over the last 2 years. Okay. So let's wait and see until he gets, I think that you could still buy him for a decent price this week. And then move forward from there. So when we look at, hey, where's the schedule for, the Jacksonville Jaguars? We're seeing Carolina, Cincinnati, Houston, San Francisco. Houston's going to be a tough matchup. If he goes off against Cincinnati and then has a tough matchup against Houston, you could easily trade into Travis Etienne because people will not want that hype train anymore. San Francisco could be a legitimate hard matchup there. Kansas City again. And then after his bye week, he faces Houston again. And then he faces the Chargers in Tennessee, which could prove to be a little bit difficult. I think that all things said and done, that Etienne's not a guy that I'm trading into right now. Maybe in a week or two, but we'll see. Scorpio, we appreciate the love. We appreciate everything and everybody in here. So I'm going to pop off at 6 o'clock. We got to cook dinner and get the little one settled. So I appreciate everybody here. Good luck this week. If you have any more questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll go back to this video and we'll take a look at it. And we'll see what's going on. Final thought here from Wumbo. I didn't know any Etienne last season, but seeing him put up like less than 1 point in multiple games terrified me this year. Yeah, if he pops off, he pops off. I'm not going to be too mad that I don't have him because I do think that the quantity of the talent you have, Scorpio, is pretty good. Good luck to everybody this week. We'll be back on Monday, 3:45 Eastern. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat of this video so that we can answer them over the weekend. Good luck if you have anybody going tonight, and we'll see you on Monday.